This afternoon. Today is Monday, November 24th, and welcome to the Smith Falls Committee of the Whole meeting tonight. I'm Councillor Jay Brennan, will be the chair this evening. I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. On November 24th, 2025, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace, friendship, and being mindful of generations to come. And I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01. I have a recommended motion for approval of agenda that November 24, 2025. Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated, moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Quinn. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest in general nature thereof? Councillor Robinson.
I'll be declaring a conflict of interest on 9.4, the pre-budget approval for CAD mapping for the police. That's my daughter-in-law's chief.
So noted. Thank you. We have a recommended motion for approval of the minutes. The minutes of November 3rd, 2025 and November 10th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meetings be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor McKenna. All in favor? Carried. Now, we have two delegations this evening, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Travis Malema, the Chief of Lanark County Paramedic Service, to join us and give us a presentation on the great work that they're doing for us. So you're welcome. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you for having me this evening. I've been asked to come to speak about the 10-year master plan that was put forth by the consultants that the county had solicited. And so I'll talk you through some of the main highlights of that, and I guess we can jump right in. So ORH, which is Operational Research and Health Limited, it's a company out of the UK. They were the ones that won the bid to do this master plan for us. I think we had 5 or 7 bids come in, and they've done a lot of emergency services both in Ontario and abroad. And so council had selected them to carry out this work. Next one. Oh, I didn't know it was a moving slide. If you just want to click it, go ahead. You can go right to the end of it. So it shouldn't surprise anybody. I mean, their approach is they take the data from the paramedic service. They have programs that will do some projective modeling, both heat mapping, predicting call volume growth, where best put resources. And they also take into account the last part, which is the consultation through the client throughout the result. And the whole point of that was to be able to make better decision-making for the paramedic service. So historically, just the way the service has evolved over the years, we've never had a 10-year master capital plan. So I was very pleased when we were able to get this off the ground, just to help guide and inform some of the future decisions we make as the service, right? Some of the stuff day to day that's reactive, I can very easily come in front of you and speak to about, what our call volumes are doing, where the pressure points are. But to get some of that long range forecasting is very beneficial. So the 4 goals of the master plan were to look at our call volume projections, look at optimal number of locations and facilities. So a lot of the times you can get consultants into reports for emergency services that just talk about your frontline staffing, right? How many resources do we need to put on? We made sure that this one also captured our capital infrastructure and our facilities to try to build for the future, and again, try to be less reactive. They also talked about our vehicle requirements, and I'll explain when they say to meet response time standards. And we did ask them to include our staffing and support model as well. So as the service and the frontline continue to grow, we also know that we're going to need some of that back end support to keep everything running efficiently. The next one. And the next one. So they looked at both things, obviously, like you would expect in any report. They looked at the quantitative results, and with their modeling, they kind of did a high line, a low line, and then they picked in between which is what they're suggesting in a few slides, about a 4% increase. And they've noticed that we've gone up 5.5% increase in the last several years. My last Q3 report I did at County Council, we're up 10% from Q3 last year. So, and that's with our preventative programs like community paramedicine and all those other things, bending that curve. So it would be a lot higher if we weren't doing some of those things. And then it talked about how it would make our base model. And right now we currently staff 1,224 vehicle hours per week. And that's a mix between our ambulances and our first response vehicles. Go to the next one. We talked about MPDS last time I was here, but the support services quality review too. I left this slide in too because it speaks to the culture we have at the paramedic service. And that if you look at the second bullet, staff are happy with the way things are going. They're happy with how things are being run. But in all the little pieces underneath, you can see where they list some of their pressure points. And some of that is not only the frontline call volume thing, but it's how can we best assist them in the back end as their support staff, as their chief, as their supervisors, to get them the equipment they need to support them on calls and to keep everything running smoothly so that they can just focus on doing the patient care that they need to do. So the first thing, as any consultant would do, you can imagine, is they established a baseline. So this is our baseline for the paramedic service as is, and taking into account our response times at 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and 12 minutes. These are the averages across the county. P4, in case you're wondering, is our highest priority call under the old dispatch system. And because they had to use data from both the old dispatch system and the new, that's why it says P4 up there. That would be equivalent to our code reds and purples now in the new system. And they did mix that data in throughout the report. So basically it's saying for the highest acuity calls, these are our response times, taking into account urban and rural. And you can see the higher percentages, obviously, in the towns where we have the resources positioned, and then some lower pieces in the rural areas. The next thing they do in any report is they look at their methodology and they do what's called a do nothing scenario. And I won't talk through this whole algorithm, but it's just some of the pieces that they brought into consideration with population growth, development, aging population. So Lanark County, as you're well aware, has both some significant growth areas, and we have a higher than provincial average in aging population and elderly, which are your two main driving factors for paramedic services being called. So when you put that perfect storm together, you can see why Lanark County Paramedic Service can be under some pressure. If you look at the next slide, this is where they predicted what the kind of modeling and baseline they would use. So the two purple columns you see on your screen are the core. So they're estimating a 4% growth over the next 10 years in each year. And they obviously did a high and a low as well, just in case we want to look at those year to year. As you know, no council is going to approve a whole 10-year plan, right, in full perpetuity. So this is kind of the baseline will be used looking forward. And then if we see whether we're above and below this threshold, we'll determine whether or not we enact the recommendations they have put into this report. And our average daily, sorry, if you could go back one there just for a bit. So they're predicting we're going to go up to about 48 calls a day compared to our 28, 29 we're sitting at now over the next 10 years with the growth in demand. Next slide, please. So the reason they do the do nothing scenario is obviously to let you know what would happen if all of those factors continue to grow and we kept status quo in the paramedic service. And once we determine what that looks like, we can then compare that to the recommendations they make to try to stave that curve and keep that line where it needs to be. So all of the stuff on this slide just shows you things will get worse if we didn't actually add resources to match the growth. Next slide, please. So resource and facility recommendations. They are recommending over the course of the 10 years that we add an additional 328 weekly vehicle hours. And they have a phase-in plan later in the slide deck that you'll see to show how they best recommend we put that into play. And council and the steering committee specifically looked at what it would take to maintain performance. So when ORH approached us and they were asking, okay, do you want to keep status quo and match growth? Do you want to improve? The answer was to match, to stay status quo, because we feel things are going well, and also to improve service significantly would obviously be very costly. But the good news is, because of the way our system is designed, in the modeling to maintain performance, we actually ended up showing results that would improve in performance slightly. And to wrap your head around that, it would be an example of, let's say the math said we needed to put an ambulance on for an extra 9 hours. Well, because of our collective agreement and the shift patterns, we can only do 12s. So if we needed to do 9 and we do 12, we get that little bit of incremental help and extra. So that's where you see slight improvement over the course of this plan, even though the mandate was to try to maintain performance. So it's good news. So frontline capacity, they talk about adding several enhancements over the course of the 10-year plan. And some of that is specific to what bases are seeing the growth in the town. Some of that is specific to what time of day we are lacking in resources, some of the evening pieces. And overall, this is what the new model would look like at the end of 10 years if we were to follow it through and if the data held true to their predictions. So this is where you would see some slight increase in our call volumes. And what they're saying too is under MPDS, which is our new dispatch system, and these are the colors. So like I said, your purple and your red are what the old code 4 lights and sirens call was. If we were to maintain these performance indicators, you would see slight improvements throughout. And also it's saying that MPDS helps us, as I spoke to you last time I was here, prioritize the calls better so we can save those resources, but it won't necessarily affect response time depending on where the call is. So whether I have that ambulance available or not, if that call is still many kilometers away, that response time won't change. Where MPDS has helped us is to make sure we have the ambulance available. And so that's why they are recommending a few of these enhancements and these resources to better allow us to cover the county. They also looked at some alternative scenarios. So one of the advantages of their modeling technology was we could put our hand up and say, okay, we'd like to take a look at this. So if we put an ERV, a first response vehicle in Maberly, what kind of impact would they have? If we took that Lanark ERV and turned it into an ambulance, how would that benefit and change the lines? So it was really good to go through some of these impact modelings that didn't necessarily make it into the recommendations, but so that we could come back to our constituents and our staff and say, yeah, we did look at that, we did check it out, we did consider it. So it was really neat to be able to do that piece. One of the ones that's in bold is one of our standby positions where we move an ambulance for coverage. They could prove with the data, which we anecdotally felt is no longer needed. So we're going to be able to remove that, which is going to create some efficiencies and less movement of vehicles. Support service recommendations. This is again over the course of the 10 years. Lanark County Paramedic Service is a little lean on the leadership side of things. And so they're recommending a second deputy chief at some point in the 10-year master plan, some extra superintendents. And then they also talked about how our community paramedic program needs to grow. So even though that's not necessarily under the purview of county council to expand because the funding comes from a different source, it still shows the need for that program and its effect on the 911 service, so that if we can grow that through the Ministry of Long-Term Care or Ontario Health East, that will have a direct impact on our 911 operations. They're also talking about, because we need a new Carleton Place base due to size constraints, relocating our headquarters there as well, because we've outgrown in the short time we've been at our headquarters the space that's there as well. So the phasing of the recommendations, just to wrap this up, being cognizant of time, so you can see how they've laid it out over the 10-year span. And if you notice in 2030, there's a plan to do a refresh. So as much as having this visioning is nice for 10 years, we want to take a look at those first few enhancements that we hopefully implement in 2026 and 2027 and see what kind of downstream effect they start to have, so that we don't just blindly follow this, but it's a great guiding principle to see where we need to go. You can see at the bottom, looking at a new Carleton Place base in the first half of the 5 years and a new Perth base in the second half. And the whole idea of this and the genesis of asking for council to go through with this report is so that we can have that long-term vision, so we can kind of do some planning in the service that is a little more proactive and not wait until the staff are really overrun before we put an enhancement on. Try to predict where it is, maybe get it in even a few months early to just kind of stave that that up and down of the influx. And then if we go to the last slide, this is essentially what the whole modeling has done. So the red line is your do nothing, and you can see how things response times would get worse. And then if we continue to implement those enhancements along the way, it keeps that blue line pretty level with our response times, which is the goal, to maintain performance. And in fact, as I said, slightly improves it. Any questions?
Thank you, Travis. Great information. Questions, comments from Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much, Chief. Two questions. One, can you talk about how funding for paramedics works? Because these are all broadcasts, so our citizens in Smith Falls may think that the province is paying for this. Can you just talk about both community paramedic services and then the ambulance response, where that funding comes from for that? And then I have a follow-up.
Okay, so through the chair, thank you. So on the 911 side of the house, the provincial government funds the paramedic service at a 50-50 funding model. So what happens is county council will approve the budget going into, say, 2026 for X, and then in 2027, a land ambulance service grant is applied where the province will pay 50% of whatever that increase was. It's pretty straightforward for operational budget wise. The major capital stuff like the ambulances and whatnot, it gets amortized down over the life of that asset. So yes, it's 50-50 funded from the province for the 911 side of the house. For the community paramedicine side, the proactive side of the house, right now that is 100% funding. And we have two funding sources from that. We have about $411,000 from Ontario Health for part of our community paramedicine program, and we have $1 million from Ministry of Long-Term Care. Those amounts have been what we started with 5 or 7 years ago as the pilot project, and so they haven't accounted for or brought us a mechanism for inflation and any costs. So we're reaching that ceiling, but that side of the house is 100% funded. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the second, thank you. That does, it's just really important that, and Smith Falls pays our share of that based on a formula with the Lander County. The second part is we're really fortunate. We have a very proactive, forward-thinking paramedic service here, and they've been up on their own, upgrading the skill level of our paramedics and providing just extensive training. And there's a move by the paramedic services of Ontario, including our own, to have a college of paramedicine. Would that be the correct word? So like the College of Nurses, College of Physicians, so that these will be licensed professionals, because the level of, as I understand it, the level of work and the complexity of the work that our paramedics, they are not simply picking up a person and driving them to the local hospital. There's an intense amount of intervention involved, medication. And so anything that we can do to support, I really support that move for the, to move to having the province establish a college. And so the next time we're talking to our MPP or our Minister of Health, or if there's a delegation going, I'm hoping that our council would sign on. I don't know if you want to comment on that anymore.
I can make a short comment to the chair if that's okay. Yes, it's exactly what the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs is advocating for right now. We just spent all last week at Queen's Park doing just this. And the advantage for our municipalities and the county is that if we can have that regulatory oversight, things like community paramedicine and the 911 can be better meshed. The paramedic would own their own licensing, and we wouldn't have kind of these silos within our division. And it opens up a lot more doors for stuff like treat and release, treat and refer, clinics with paramedics and stuff like that, which would again help alleviate, because we keep looking at this constant increase in call volume and we're looking for ways to bend that curve. This would open up many doors to help that. So that's my comment on that.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? Mayor Banko?
Thanks, Trevor. And again, Peter and I have seen this before, but it's great to see it again. And I think what's reassuring is how as I think Peter said, forward-thinking, you and the service are, and trying to ensure that as the community grows, as the complexity needs of our community grows, you're going to be prepared, assuming county council and us in a role there supports the expansion as needed in the future. So could you comment just on 2026, because there's a recommendation. We had our county budget meeting last Friday, and it hasn't gone through county council, it's gone through corporate services and been supported thus far.
Yes, so through the chair, my comment is that, last Friday was our budgetary presentation to county council. And in that budgetary presentation were the two recommendations that you saw in the 2026 slide, which are another resource, an ambulance for the evening in Carlton Place, and some superintendent support. And we're hopeful that on December 3rd that continues to go through. And again, it is mainly, obviously, primarily for the citizens and the counties to make sure we can keep delivering excellent service. But it also has that internal effect of alleviating pressures on staff, which are our most valuable resource. So if we can make things easier for them and keep that workload at a reasonable level, then hopefully we maintain them longer, and it just benefits all around.
Very good, and vital service. And frankly, those of us who are in the community, whether it's us or loved ones, when we call 911 and we want an ambulance to be there, certainly meeting the future needs of the community is very important, ensuring that they're in a timely manner. And I think to your credit, virtually every time you come to county, usually an annual ask, whether it's the automated stretchers or it's equipment, it's things are always evolving and changing, or an extra truck or new truck, you make a compelling case. And I think the recognition across county council is that we need to ensure that we provide our paramedic service with everything that it needs to look after our citizens. So well done. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Travis. I think that, and I've seen sitting in an emergency room one day and the ambulance came in, the first responders are absolute heroes. And I think that we take it for granted in a lot of ways. So the work that you do is not just picking people up. I know that for a fact. And thank you for what you do. And we're happy to support you. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. All good?
All good.
Thank you. Okay, now we have Lorna Preston. Hi, Lorna. George Street Reconstruction. Good to see you.
Well, good evening, Council. Mayor, bear with me. I'm not a professional speaker,
You don't need to be.
but I do a lot of talking. Our problem tonight is George Street construction. I don't know who knows what's going on that street, because I sure as hell don't, and most of the people on George Street don't know. Every time you ask anybody on this paper, which these you might as well have kept because half the people didn't get them. So how are you to know what's going on? Secondly, if just once somebody gave us an answer, we would not be as angry and upset as we are. This has caused a lot of problems on this street. Now, what you tend to forget, and I heard quite often, ma'am, it's a construction zone. Well, you know where your construction zone is? In my front yard, in her front yard, in their front yard. It's ridiculous that no compensation of any kind was made to the people on the street. Not one of you people ever walked 2 blocks down there to see what's going on. Now, Mr. Mayor, you have an idea of what I'm talking about. I talked to you. And your response was you will talk to Paul. Paul's response is always, I'll talk to Tanner Green. The buck stops tonight. Who's in control of this situation? Here's a perfect example. My biggest issue is the safety. Mind you, a lot of people on our street have had water in the basement. They've had sewage back up in their tubs and their sinks. Exactly. They've had numerous problems from tiles falling off the ceiling. You have to remember, you're in a 100-year-old street there. All the houses in there are ancient. So you go in there and pound, which they did, and especially in front of our house, I guess is about a month. Constant pounding, breaking rock. As I've said, you can handle it because it has to be done. But there's a problem. Nobody wants to do anything. We have the main safety issue is no place to walk. You bring these people in and let them do whatever they want. So it seems, right? Because nobody has an answer. Why was there never a safe passageway for people to walk? You take away our driveways, which there was weeks went by you couldn't get in your driveway. Then you take away any place to walk. I stopped going out of my house because it's just not safe. And nobody gave you an answer. And nobody did anything. Now, I've talked to Mr. Green numerous occasions, and I don't understand why you would put a man in that position, which, what I understand is public relations is not his job. He's there to make sure that they do the job right. So what right does he have to do anything? He tells me his hands are tied every single time I brought stuff up. One of the issues was the screeching of those machines. Yes, you understand it's construction, but this is excessive noise. I even went as far as talking to the company. Did I get anywhere there? No, their equipment's all new and it's just part of the job, more or less. Well, excuse me, I was also told that they don't grease these things, but they can water them down, which will cut the noise substantially, right? I wonder how often that happened. I came out of my house one morning at 7:15, had enough. Waited for a white hat guy come along. And I said to him, do you not think you could water that friggin' thing? Huh, we watered it yesterday, he said. And we're perfectly within our rights. Really? I phoned Paul McMahon. Where did I get with that? Nowhere. Once again, nothing's done. So one day, this is where the safety issue really comes into part. Walking home from the hospital, down George Street. I'm walking pretty slow. I have health issues, my age like everybody else. Not getting down the street too fast. There's the fence. I'm not sure exactly what their number is, but that is 2-3 houses in a road away from mine, and I can't get down the street. So this fella kind of walks by and he says, what are you doing there? So I'm trying to go home. What? I said, I'm trying to go home. Well, you'll have to walk around. Well, excuse me. I'm 72 years old. I have a back issue, and I am not walking another 4 blocks for anybody because there's no need that there was no spot to walk either side of the street. So I proceeded, maybe not my best decision, to go and move the fence and proceed down the street. Well, I sure got a couple of people excited. Mr. Green's telling me, oh, you can't be here. This is trespassing. This is against the law. You could get hurt. Excuse me? This is like walking on a dance floor compared to what's there. There was places the drop was this much that you couldn't get down from people's homes. You had to walk practically in their breaks in their house. Like, we screamed at each other for about 15 minutes there and trying to agree to disagree. Because once again, his hands are tied. Why is that? Is Mr. McMunn's tied? I never got to talk to Mrs. Turner, whoever the other lady was, but apparently went on leave, which is fine. Everybody deserves to have time off. But why wasn't somebody else put in charge? Besides a young man that had just started and probably ended up losing his job over stupidity, which is not his fault. Why? Let's bring this up to November 6th. My friend and neighbor decided to walk her dog. Guess what? We walk off the steps, cross the driveway, couple of steps, down you go. Flat in your face. This is like 5:45 at night. I'd like to show you a picture to see how you would feel if you come home and saw your wife, your mother, your father come in and looking like this. For what? Because there's no safety in that street. None. So explain to me why there is none. I'd like to know. Please, anybody got answers? Because this is ridiculous. And for people that I've talked up and down the street, some people I never got to talk to because how do I get up the street? It's like I said to Mr. Green. What if as we were screaming, if I drop right here now with stroke, heart attack, what are you going to do? Going to call an ambulance. Well, that's really nice, but how's it getting to me? Every corner is blocked off. You can't get by. There's no place to walk. What's going to happen? Somebody's going to die. And why do you wait till somebody looks like this before anything is done? I'd like to know. Because nobody has answers. So would someone in this council like to tell me who's responsible? And I mean,
Lorna.
you can't tell me that you people all didn't hear at one time or another about problems on George Street. Come on, I know you had a meeting, and I don't know who's in that meeting, twice a week with construction people. I wanted to come, find out why. No, you can't get in there. But you people all know what the problem was. Explain that to me. Now, as I said, look at those pictures. If by chance there hadn't been, I'm assuming it's Mamrooney, because it was a black truck leaving, saw her flashlight as she fell, stopped and helped her up. Well, she couldn't get up. Do you need help? No, I can't get up. The woman's 75, both knees done. How are you supposed to get up, right? And if he hadn't saw her fall, how long would she have laid there? I'd like to know. Her husband wasn't due home for another hour. I wasn't sure she had went out to walk the dog. Who would have found her? Pitch black. This is some of the crap laying around. Now, this nice little spot with the sawhorse, I'd like you to look at. Before the sawhorse went up, we had a space no wider than that to walk through in front of my neighbor's house. If you had parcels, you had to get up and try and walk on their step because you couldn't get through. Or you can walk across the Masonic Hall, but if it rains, snows, my husband fell twice trying to get to the car. Mind you, he wasn't seriously hurt by no means, but why? Why was nothing done? I bet you if it was in your yard, and this picture, as I say, there was nothing until that morning that I made the phone call and said there was an incident that happened. Oh, now there's a flurry. There's tape everywhere. And now all of a sudden we've got cones. I said to my husband the night she fell, get out there and take a picture. But because it was also a Marooney gentleman, I think, that helped her up, now there's a cone over it. What? Why? I just I don't understand it, and that's why we're here tonight. We'd like answers. Oh, one other mention I was told too many a times, when complained, first we got no answers, but then you're told to go to your insurance company. Now, why should I pay for somebody else's mistakes? Why? So our premiums go up? I don't think so. You brought these people into town, and isn't there somebody, do you not have a health and safety person in this town that should be checking sites at least once a day? Then the biggest joke is this Joshua Harrison. He comes Friday night just passed, about, well, late evening, I'd say 3 o'clock-ish. And he hands me this letter. If you have problems, call Josh. Well, I've never seen the man before. And every friggin' complaint that we had, never saw one person from the town other than Tanner Green. Well, no, I did talk to Mr. McMahon face to face. None of their people. I'm assuming that Tanner would pass it on to their people. This, and this has to be done. There's complaints. None of them ever came to the door. After Susan fell, nobody came to the door. Not even to say, I'm sorry, are you all right? I'll buy you a new pair of jeans. Anything. Nothing. Their HR person never came to the door. Then, out of nowhere, at the end of this project, this fella says, oh, talk to me. What the hell is that? It's wrong. So please, ask some questions because
Thank you, Lorna.
love to answer.
And I can tell you're really upset.
I am.
appreciate that.
How many times I could have fallen, and if I had fallen with my back, I could be in a chair.
Yes. So I'll look to my colleagues. I'm just going to have to thank you for coming. I mean, that takes a lot, and we appreciate it greatly.
That's another.
I know you've been heard. Staff are in the room, so they've heard you as well. So you will be hearing from them, and now council's heard you, and we hear you loud and clear. Okay,
No question.
Councillor Quinn.
I don't have a question. I just want to reach out to you and tell you how sorry we are. You know, we had construction on the other end of George Street last year, and I really don't believe, yes, there were some issues there, but I don't think they were anything like what you people are putting up with. And the company that did the work last year were right there. I know I go to the Anglican church, and I know the company last year made sure that when people were going to church Wednesday morning, there was a spot for them to get through to get the parking in the backyard of the church. If there was a funeral, they shut construction down till the funeral was over with. That's what's the sign of a good construction company and people wanting to get along with one another. And you have major issues over there, and they do need to be dealt with. And it should not be your insurance company.
Well, personally, myself, I rent, but my neighbors all own their home, and I've been in the same spot for 29 years. They never provided anything for us to get around, and I've also left a couple of letters that other people on the street have
Yes,
wrote.
we have those.
You have them?
Yes,
And of course, you've got the pictures, so.
yes.
Okay, well, Laura, thank you. And I know we talked this summer and mostly about the noise at that time. And again, the answer I got back really is that if they can water them all the time, it'll help minimize the noise. But it sounds like they did it not very often, and probably could have done it more. So I appreciate you coming forward, and yourself and Heather, all the other neighbors, whoever else has been involved, and the letter's been written. It's given us an understanding that we didn't have before. I think what I would ask now, I guess, with committee is that we have staff come back, hopefully as early as next week or as soon as possible, with some answers to some of your concerns. And I mean, we've had numerous construction projects. Every year there's something major going on, whether it was Beckwith or Catherine or George. I mean, this stuff it happens all the time. We go through a bidding process to find a contractor to do a project. I would say our own experience, some seem to do a better job than others. I think that's the end result. But when you send out a tender, you take the low bidder. And I don't know if that's a factor in any of this or not, but staff have heard your concerns. This is recorded, so we do have it to go back to. And with committee's consensus, I'd like to have staff come back to us next week or the week after with a deeper understanding of some of the issues you've brought forward and some explanations. Because from our standpoint, we're not involved in the day-to-day operations, so we're a little bit removed from the concerns you've said. And so we need an understanding of what's staff's interaction with the contractor and those things, so we have a better understanding of any action that we could or should be taking. I'm sorry.
I missed a chance to mention parking. Some people didn't get that letter. They were getting tickets right, left, and center. And they're told to go and park on Market Street. Hello, this one lady in particular I'm talking about has a young baby under a year old. And she's going to trap him back and forth? Car got hit. Their people are everywhere. They take any parking spot around the sides, and nobody can get one. And one or two have let us know we're number one in their books over parking.
So there's some lessons obviously to learn through this, and much of it probably too late for this project, but maybe things we can take in how we manage projects in the future. So thank you.
just have one
Councillor
thing to
McGuire
say.
had something to say. Councillor McGuire.
Sorry?
Excuse me. Thanks for coming tonight. It's good to hear your concerns. Some of it I've heard before, some of it's new to hear tonight. I didn't realize how much I used George Street until it was closed, and trying to get down the sidewalk or trying to get down or Porch Fest or the Heritage Symposium at the Masonic Lodge. It was difficult to navigate the area when events were going on down there. I'm wondering, would it be helpful, or do you think the neighborhood would be willing if we had a survey at the end of the project where we could distribute it to residents and then get more information, and then
Most
for the next
definitely.
project get some best practices or lessons learned from this one, so we don't have this experience again?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Everybody would like to have their 2 cents worth in because, you know, when you people needed us, we were there to vote you in. You better be here for us this time because that's what we voted you in for, was to look after the people.
Councillor Quinn has
Thank
something.
you.
Just
Councillor Quinn has.
one other thing. So Mayor has said, you know, staff will get back to you and staff are going to let us know what's happening. So you know what? No, we're not, as councillors, we're really not involved in those kind of issues. But guess what? You've come here tonight, so now you've made us involved. So now we need answers, and I thank you very much for coming and doing this.
Thank you.
Good for
Thanks,
you.
Lorna. Thank you very much. So keep going. Okay, any director's reports?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we have two, starting with Chief Cheeseborough.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 3 quick updates for you this evening. Starting on November the 16th, we have split the bylaw officers into 2 groups. One to issue for the first week warning tickets as the winter parking regulations started on the 15th, and 1 staff member during the day, which would alternate. Starting this week, following the week of warning tickets, they began to issue parking tickets. Through the winter operations, we'll determine exactly when the ticket and towing will take place, but that will be contingent on the winter snow removal or winter operations throughout the town. The second item that I wanted to bring to your attention is the 3 contracts that we'd entered into. 2 of the contracts have confirmed they'll be starting the end of January, with the 3rd contract starting the end of February. And the last item of importance to bring to your attention is last week I received an email from Fire Chief Gene Richardson, Rideau Lakes Township. Our automatic aid agreement is due to expire on December the 31st. Well, they've elevated that up to December the 10th. A time has not been given on December the 10th when this will take place. However, that falls within the 12-month notification period from last year on December the 3rd. They have contacted Bell. Bell has arranged to have the switchover done on that date and time. So effective at whatever date or whatever time on the 10th, Smith Falls will cease to respond into Rideau Lakes automatically. We're in the process of reviewing the mutual aid agreement that I have sent off to Rideau Lakes to be revised so it falls within the provincial guidelines of mutual aid, and to ensure that the staff and resources are in place, that we are not being called in to supplement their response.
Thank you, Chief.
Any questions?
Questions, comments? Thank you for the information.
Next up, Mr. Chair, we have Director McMillan.
Good evening, everyone. First off, I'll just mention that I do have something going on with my hearing this evening. I do have my hearing aids in, but I'm having a little hard time hearing the delegation that was just up here. So if there are any questions, if you wouldn't mind just raising your volume so this old guy over here at the podium can hear you, it would be great. So I have 3 reports this evening, one being George Street Phase 2, second being Confederation Bridge, and last but not least, the water tower. So I just want to give council an update and the people at home as to the progression of works and when we can anticipate things to be open and or brought into service. So first being George Street Phase 2, works are progressing well despite the early onset of winter. It always seems when we do reconstruction projects, no matter how well things go, we're always looking at November and skirting around the start of December for concrete works and paving. This particular project's no different. So remaining concrete works are to be completed over the course of this week, if not most of it having been completed today. That all in anticipation of base course asphalt being completed on the 26th of November, which would be Wednesday. My understanding is fine grading took place today. So that's fine grading of the base course granular A to receive asphalt. Top course asphalt, and again, this is all contingent on weather. Top course asphalt is scheduled for the 27th, 28th of this month. Private driveway reinstatement is scheduled for in and around December 1st, December 2nd. And lastly, but not least, sod placement will be starting today and it will proceed into in and around the 4th of December. So that's a reinstatement of people's front lawns and the boulevard area. The chief noted winter parking prohibition. So it is currently in effect for Smiths Falls. Residents within the limits of construction, so those impacted by George Street Phase 2, that can't park in their driveways overnight due to construction activities, are to reach out to bylaw to get an overnight parking permit pass. So with that parking permit pass, they can park on adjacent side streets. I do understand that some folks that live on George Street that did park adjacent to the site did get warnings, not tickets. They weren't ticketed, but they did receive warnings. But if they reach out to bylaw, they can get a printed temporary parking pass for construction that they can put on their dash, and that will indicate to bylaw that they have permission to be there for the short period until we get this project wrapped up. With the context of the balance of work that's to take place between now and project wrap up, there will be very limited access to people's driveways through paving operations, notably paving of residential driveways. So we will communicate to Mulrooney Construction, who's a general contractor, that they step up their communication information to residents to advise them when and if they can't get in their driveway. I'll move on to Confederation Bridge. Works on the bridge are progressing well, as you can see when you drive down the street.
Director? Sorry. I think Councillor Miller has a question she asked.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, but just on that note, can you hear me okay?
Again, yes.
Okay. Could we be proactive with the parking passes, given that there's frustration with this process? Could we just go ahead, print them out, put them in all the affected mailboxes, just as a gesture while we try to understand what's happening?
Certainly. Yes.
Thank you.
Just a note on that, they will be dated to be in and around the completion of the works. Only so we don't have parking passes floating around long after the work is completed, but people can display on their dash and assume that they're not going to get ticketed through the months.
Yeah. Mayor?
So when do you anticipate, you've talked about the dates when this work will be done. Do you anticipate by a certain date in December, where I don't know, the second week of December, when work should be finished?
Yeah, through the chair. We anticipate right now sometime in and around the 4th of December.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, that's what we're being noted by the general contractor, but there's a whole plethora of reasons why those dates might not be exactly adhered to. They do rely on a number of subcontractors. Subcontractors, like they do get impacted by inclement weather. Everything gets pushed back, and then that subsequently will push back the timing on this project if they have other works elsewhere.
I think Councillor McGuire had something.
Yeah, so are we looking at 2 lifts of asphalt, everything, landscaping? What are we expecting to get done before winter, and then what will come into next spring?
Yeah, through the chair, we had that conversation last week at our bi-weekly meeting. Mulrooney is anticipating having everything completed this fall. Again, weather dependent, but the forecast looks fairly favorable for this week. Outside of that, rolling into next week, weather would be kind of similar to what we've experienced over the last couple of weeks. So not horrible. If everything works out, then I don't see any reason why they couldn't finish up in and around the 4th, if not a couple of days afterwards. So.
Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
So who's responsible for grass planting or like that side of the landscaping in the spring? Is that on the town or?
No, through the chair, the landscaping is the responsibility of the general contractor to finish up. But like I say, they're anticipating getting that work completed this fall.
How do they plant grass this time of year?
Sod,
And it's got a warranty, I guess?
yes. So just on that, through the chair, in my experience with sod placement this late in the year, assuming they can still cut sod from the sod farms, which I'm being notified that it's still available, you lay the sod as you would in the spring or summer. The sod goes immediately dormant, much like a tree would if you planted it this time of year. And then in the spring, once we get spring conditions, spring rain, etc., that grass really takes off once it roots. So all that to say, it's late in the year, but it's not a bad time to lay sod contingent on being able to get sod. I've done these projects for a little better than 12 years, being responsible for them from start to finish, and it's always been my experience that the sod does really, really well. Placing it this year, it doesn't root right away. It goes dormant, and then it takes off in the spring.
Thanks, go ahead.
So on to Confederation Bridge. Works are progressing well. The steel roofing installation is well underway, as is the handrail installation. The decorative lighting package, we did hear from Parks Canada today. They are in favor of the decorative lighting package that we've put together in our proposal, contingent on getting our basic impact assessment amended, but we do have concurrence from Parks Canada that they believe that they're in favor of the package with some caveats here and there, some minor tweaks. So all that to say, I'm optimistic that the decorative lighting package will go in. We do know that the handrail lighting was never in question because that was all part of the safety features of the bridge for deck lighting. It's all the other associated lighting with lighting up the arches and really focusing on the arches and really focusing on the arches for the community so you can see it when you drive by. So not so much about safety, it's more decorative. But all that to say that Parks Canada appears to be in favor of our proposal.
And I think Councilor McGuire has
I guess
on that.
it's great that Parks Canada is in favor of this modified proposal, but it's not what we approved to council. Because what we approved to council were lights around the arch that like globe lighting that comes across that makes a visible landmark at night that can be seen the same as the Christmas lights used to be seen. And this is a projection onto the bridge. And because the wood of the bridge has a color to it, the projection is always going to be tinted by the color that it's being projected on. So I don't, like, I think it's a pretty big compromise, and I think it's unfortunate that the town has to compromise when the Parks Canada is being unreasonable and going completely outside its mandate, where DFO would have the responsibility for fish spawning. There's nothing with lighting of a bridge, and that's not a fish spawning area. Like, there's nothing that can get up between the two dams. There's nothing that's spawning over winter because it's drained. It's completely out of line for Parks Canada's mandate and irrational to have this project compromised at this level, because it's never going to be the same. It's just going to be light shining on it, the same as the light shine in the water tower. So I don't know. I'm disappointed by it, and I just don't accept it. It's like, why do we have to compromise when they're not being reasonable with us? Yeah, and I get you're in a corner, but it's like what's our job as council, or what's our role? Why are we going along with this?
Thanks for that. I don't think there's a question there, so. Just strong comment.
I guess the question, does anybody else on council feel this way? Because it's, we voted something, we approved something, we got funding for something, and we're not getting what we paid for. So am I the only one that's upset by it?
Don Quinn?
I agree with you. And it's not just building the bridge. There's many things that seem to happen with Parks Canada where we have to bend and they don't, or they keep us on a string till the very last minute wondering what we can do. This isn't, we should be able to sit down at the table with them and say, this is what we're projecting. okay, let's move forward with this. Do you have any concerns right now before we start? It should be right at the first. And there used to be that kind of a relationship with Parks Canada. We need it back again. We need it back again. So I agree with what you're saying.
Mayor?
Well, Paul, can you go over what the lighting plan looks like then?
Yeah, so through the chair, what I can say is there's been quite a lengthy narrative about this decorative lighting package, and it is one of 3 different proposals that were put together by Structure Craft through their lighting consultant for consideration. We did present them all to Parks Canada. They came back with being in favor of the one lighting package of the 3. So, like I say, we presented 3 options. They came back in favor of 1. So that's what we proceeded on with going to detailed design of that lighting package based on Parks Canada's feedback. What I will say, I think I'm comfortable on going out on a limb to say that the lighting package will feature the arches. It's perhaps maybe not quite what we were considering and what was approved at the early onset of this discussion about the arch lighting. But nonetheless, I think it will still feature the arch lighting. There's quite a number of different lights that will be attached to the bridge. Notably, there's lighting that goes on the side of those concrete pedestals that you see that the arches tie into, that will shine up, not out into the adjacent landscape, but will be pointed at the bridge. There'll be other lights up on the purlins, which are the cross members that go across the bridge from arch to arch that the roofing steel sits on, that will shine kind of down on the arch. So there is a whole series of different LED lights that will feature the bridge. I can't explain it any better than that without showing council the drawing.
Yeah, I guess at this stage, we're down that road, and if in the end we're not satisfied with the outcome, then we can always have a discussion on to go back and push for a modification or something different. I guess it sounds like we're virtually there with what Parks Canada would approve, and it's hard to envision exactly what it looks like. But again, I think if we're not satisfied, then we have to have another discussion about it and see what we can do.
Yeah, I would say the bridge is very striking, to say the least. So in the lighting area, I'm sure will be accentuate that. Let me put it that way. And so whatever's it's sort of subjective. And I think that train has left the station as far as I can see. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any way we could see the images? Maybe not tonight, but could you send out the 3 options? Like, I'm assuming there's a picture of what it might look like. I don't know why I assume that.
Yes, through the chair, there are drawings, if you will. They're not necessarily renderings, but drawings that show what the photometric light spread will look like on the arches and the deck, etc. All that to say that the lighting package that Structure Craft through their lighting consultant have put together is fairly robust. So it's not simply just 2 lights on either end of the bridge shining up. There's a whole series of lights to try to give the same effect of what we were anticipating right from the start of this conversation.
Yeah. Just my point is, without seeing if I could see the picture, then I may not agree with Councillor McGuire, or if I saw the picture, I might agree with him. So I haven't seen the picture.
Okay, we're getting into the weeds. Councillor Miller.
Which is a great segue to what I was going to say, which is sometimes it may feel like we're getting involved in operations. I think what it's important to remember is some projects are generational, right? We're not choosing this bridge for us. We're choosing this for the next 100 years. So I think it's really important that we do it right. So I agree with Councillor McKenna. Let's see the pictures and make sure we're doing it right.
Councillor McGuire.
I think whether or not the rendering comes back and it's impressive or not impressive, like projection lighting is never going to be as impressive as actual lighting, and that's why we made that decision. But council made a decision, we voted on it, we gave direction on it, and now months later we're being told that we're not able to get what we voted on. And that, for me, the problem is as much procedural as it is. The bridge is going to look great. If it's projected, there's going to be more light pollution. It's not going to be as sharp as it could have been. But at the end of the day, when we make a vote and we give direction, what are we doing this whole process for, giving up our Monday nights if it's not creating actions? And that's where I'm frustrated with it, as much as we're not getting what we ordered.
Thank you for that. I would say continue on, Director.
Yeah, so I'll continue. So due to winter conditions and the timing of the installation of all the balance of works that needs to happen to the bridge, notably the asphalt approach work, the landscaping, and the fieldstone capping of the pedestals. Due to winter conditions and the work by some of the subs that need to do landscaping, paving, and that fieldstone capping, Structurecraft's not able to finish that part of the project this fall. So with the fact that the asphalt approach work won't be completed, meaning we won't have a hard surface from both end of the bridge up to the bridge. It'll be a granular base material prior to paving. My recommendation is that we do not open the bridge this fall, that the fencing, most of the fencing around the site will be removed because it's very broadly kind of encompassing the whole construction laydown area. So that'll be tightened up and brought in to delineate access to the bridge or restrict access to the bridge. And then in spring of 2026, Structurecraft will complete the balance of paving, landscape, and the fieldstone capping of the pedestals. Reasonably speaking, we're approaching the start of December, much like we are with other projects. But at this point, I'm hearing that it's just not feasible to get that work done. Notably, they can't secure the subcontractors because it is getting so late in the year, to get in and get that work completed.
Hey, Mayor Panka.
Very disappointing, obviously. So I appreciate the stonework. I appreciate the fact that there may not be anybody who's doing asphalt right now has probably got everything booked through to the end of the plant's closing. I understand that. But can we not just compress the granular approaches, tamp them down, have a relatively decently hard surface? That's going to be covered in snow and probably frozen in at some point in time, and still have access this fall, and then have to shut it down in the spring for, I don't know, a week or whatever number of days to finish up those last pieces. At least that would give people the opportunity to enjoy it this fall. And the community's been waiting to enjoy this asset. And so I understand it's not ideal, but if it's accessible and it's really simply a matter of granular instead of asphalt approaches, some cosmetic stuff, my preference would be we forge ahead and try to get it open. Unless it's really unrealistic.
Yeah, through the chair, Your Worship, I do appreciate your comments and your interest. Myself, my staff, Structurecraft all certainly had an appetite to get this bridge project completed prior to winter freeze up. But unfortunately, Mother Nature's playing against us, and we did have a couple of hiccups throughout the project, some logistical construction activity that took place that didn't quite play out how it was intended. But you mentioned accessibility, so my concern would be with the granular approach to each end of the bridge. We're at roughly, design grade is about 4.1%, so not flat, but not super steep. It's certainly, people can ambulate up it. Anybody with an assistive device can get up in the bridge. It's not obtrusive, and it's well within the integrated accessibility standards regulation for AODA. It's within the slope range. However, I would have concerns over the winter season if we get it's very difficult to try to maintain a granular surface at each end going up to the bridge. And then if we're ever subject to kind of freeze thaw conditions, that granular base becomes less than desirable for somebody, particularly with an assistive device trying to get up onto the bridge. So it doesn't please me to bring this information to council, but my professional recommendation would be to, from a liability perspective, to not open the bridge this fall.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Continue.
So on that, we could have an official ribbon cutting in the spring of 2026 when everything is completed. So this work would be the first order of business, particularly the paving. I would ensure that is done as soon as asphalt plants are open in the spring. It would be first on the list, if that makes sense.
Just a question is, was there any contractual agreement with Stretchercraft in terms of timing?
So through yourself, Mr. Chair, the project was to have been completed this fall, in and around this time. However, there was some challenges that we ran into on the bridge that weren't something that couldn't have been foreseen by either the town or the contractor. Notably, the concrete abutment work that needed to happen on both ends of the bridge. We did the best that we could with geotechnical investigation prior to construction, but the substrate or the information that was presented in the geotechnical report wasn't necessarily what we ran into once we opened up the ground. So particularly on the west side of the bridge, we ran into a significant amount of water once we excavated down to bedrock that was running along the top of the bedrock, which would have been the old riverbed. Still flows, so kind of a river running under the ground, if you will. So that presented a whole suite of challenges for Stretchercraft with respect to their design, putting the project behind about 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm still working with Stretchercraft on that and what that looks like from a financial perspective.
Okay.
But that's my job in the background to try to.
Okay. Just a thought. Okay. Continue on.
Lastly but not least, the water tower. So I'm pleased to say that this project is on schedule. Asphalt paving is scheduled for tomorrow. That would be the roadway going into the tower, and the yard in and around the tower will be paved tomorrow. Pressure testing and disinfection of the water tower valve room piping and tank is scheduled for the week of November 24th. Works are anticipated to complete on December 10th. And that's always been Landmark Structures' schedule in terms of timing for turning this project over to the town. So the projects went really, really well. No significant hiccups, nothing that certainly couldn't be mitigated. So all that to say they're on schedule, and they're looking at turning over this project to the town on the 10th of December. Myself and our communication staff and Malcolm are all working on a ribbon cutting ceremony for December 12th. So people at home, that's what we're aiming for right now. There'll be more to come on that through communication. But the project's gone really, really, really well, and we are on schedule. So.
Good. That's good news then. Councillor Pink, or Mayor Pick, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. The movement of communication equipment from I assume it's going to be, is it moved from the old tower to the new tower, or is there new equipment going on there? Has that been installed yet, or when will it be installed?
Yes, thanks for the question through the chair. The communications equipment on the old tower, I think we need to keep in mind that the old tower isn't going anywhere right away. We will take the old tower out of service. Essentially, we turn off a valve. It's not that simple, but we turn off a valve, we isolate it. Not indifferent to what we do when we've experienced a couple of those leaks. We turn it off, we do water the tower. So there isn't any immediate concern to deal with the communications equipment, meaning that equipment can stay on the tower until we're poised to receive it over at the new tower. So we'll see in the 2026 capital budget, we do have funds in there for a communications building, as well as a backup natural gas generator. I'm getting ahead of ourselves here when we start talking about budget, but I just wanted to note that there are some things for the communications, i.e. A building that we need to house all the communications equipment. So that work obviously needs to be done before anything is quote unquote moved from the old tower. And I would point out that it's my understanding that the communications equipment on the old tower is antiquated, obsolete, if you will. So it will not likely be quote unquote moved over to the new tower. It will be all new equipment put in the new tower location.
Okay. Thank you.
Tower, new equipment. Councillor McKenna?
Thank you for the illuminating report. Is the water tower going to have lights on it, or is it required for air traffic or?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% certain. Yes, I'm looking at the chief and he's saying yes.
On the antenna.
On the antenna, okay.
But we're not lighting our water tower up.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director. Thank you very much. Okay, now we can start our meeting. We have no committee of the whole consent reports this evening. We have some weighty priority issues. 9.1 Draft Heritage Conservation District Plan with Planner Grenke. Carl, before you start, having read the report, I thought maybe you can do the intro and then there's several sort of feedbacks you're looking for council. So we'll take them one at a time and we'll do it that way. That's okay? Yep.
Okay, good evening. Staff are pleased to present a Heritage Conservation District Plan for Council's information and consideration. And on screen also, I'd like to introduce Christian Giansante from Stantec Consulting, who's been with the project right from the beginning, and he's available and on hand to answer more of the technical questions that Council may have on the plan. So the HCD, as Council knows, is a strategic initiative identified in this term strategic plan. It recognizes the history and character of the downtown commercial core, which is in its unique geographic setting. Our downtown, as you know, isn't really like any other downtown. There's a lot of geographical and historical features, the canal, that have guided that. So the HCD is not just a tool to recognize a collection of old buildings, but rather a cohesive concentration that together exceed the sum of their parts and tell the story about a place. So done right, a Heritage Conservation District should be a positive planning document that recognizes and protects what is important to Council, but still allows and supports the evolution of our district to bring out the best. So the HCD plan that's before you is the culmination of 2 years of planning, guided by and ticking the boxes set out then on the Heritage Act that included the study phase. The study phase, of course, assessed the cultural heritage value of each building in the study area, also looked at the broader historical development, built forms, streetscapes, and open spaces in that area around the downtown. And the study phase, which was presented to you about a year ago, included the findings of the research and made some recommendations on the boundaries and identified objectives that an HCD plan should take forward. Council's directed us to proceed to the plan phase, which carries that forward and enshrines the findings of the study in a policy document that sets the direction of heritage approvals in the proposed district. So the plan includes both policies that are binding and guidelines that represent best practices and applies to both the municipal works as well as private development. The line of questioning I got the most throughout the whole process is, can we do this? Or can we regulate this, or can we address that? And the answer is invariably we can. And the question of whether we should is up to us, up to Council to determine. We can regulate windows, but we don't need to. We can regulate paint, but we don't need to. The approach that was usually followed was that if something was fairly easily reversible, then usually that would not be a priority for regulation. It's very important to note that Heritage Conservation District plans give council tremendous latitude to acknowledge and address what's important to council. There's almost 150 HCDs across the province, and each of them are identified for unique reasons and respond to different local contexts. So the report details public consultation that was undertaken in the plan phase. So back in the spring, we were learning about what was important to, we're reaching out to learn what was important to stakeholders, our business owners and property owners downtown. And then in September, the second open house presented a draft plan that, and we were looking for feedback just to confirm that we were on the right approach. Outreach was pretty significant, far in excess of what the Heritage Act requires. And we did have a number of folks who've been involved right from the beginning, and also several who joined us at our last open house. Overall, the level of engagement, particularly from out-of-town property owners, was admittedly lower than we would have expected and hoped for, despite the best attempts to reach out. So the plan you see has been identified somewhat from there, including some additional feedback from the Municipal Heritage Committee and staff and the public. So the review has identified a number of issues and approaches that we've pulled out and highlighted to review with council, and we seek your direction on them. This is, of course, by no means an exhaustive list. We welcome council's feedback anywhere in the document, but certainly the items that we're looking at here really speak to sort of council's level of comfort and sort of discretion as to what approach you'd like to take on these items. So I'll start with the first one here, and that is the heritage permit exemptions. So the HCD, it proposes a list of what the plan identifies as minor or reversible things that won't need a permit. And the question for council, based on what's provided in there, is does that list cover what council's expectations are? And
Councilor McGuire's already got his hand up.
Excuse me. Thanks, Mr. Chair. For the first two, the delegated authority and heritage permit exemptions, unfortunately, this report wasn't ready in time for our Municipal Heritage Committee last Tuesday. And I think that the committee is going to play a big role in both of these aspects, whether they're included or whether they're not included, what the scope of expertise is going to be on that committee, and I think it's important to consult with them before we make any final decisions. So I'm hoping we can defer these two for tonight, get some more consultation, and then come back for a more firm answer maybe a few weeks in the future.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Any other comments on them? Councilor McKenna?
Just I support, it would be really important for me to hear from the Heritage Committee. So just to support Councilor McGuire.
So that was the delegated authority and heritage. Okay, permit exceptions. Okay, so is everybody okay if we'll leave that? Okay, so you can skip to the infill probably, Carl. Or if you want to go over the other one briefly,
I
that'd
think
be fine.
we can jump right to infill. So I think this section highlights design direction for a new development to fit in within an established neighborhood. So the plan identifies sort of the defining features of our landscape, a lot of the red brick construction and a number of other form, massing, and design elements, and it breaks it into subsections on windows, on materials, on scale and massing, and a few other things. So we're looking for council's general direction on that. We've heard feedback from a variety of sources on the draft plan. We've heard a preference that the policies be prescriptive for clarity and to ensure a consistent built form across our downtown. We've also heard that a desire for more flexible policies, allowing a little bit more discretion and in design. So what's proposed attempts to balance that. And I'll just balconies as an example. It's not in a report, but it's one thing that has come up recently, and that's an interesting one where we're sort of looking at different competing interests. So for example, our zoning bylaw downtown requires each new residential unit to have either outdoor or a rooftop patio space, and that's a quality of life thing. it allows folks to have a bit of outdoor space. However, if we're looking at, and that's fair enough to include in a new building. However, if we're looking at an existing building, particularly if it's a contributing building, then it may not, might be a different story, especially if it's facing the facade, facing the street. So that's one area sort of where we're attempting to balance the competing interests, and the recommendation is avoid new balconies on contributing buildings, but at least facing the street, but accommodate them in new infill. So I'll look for council's direction as it relates to infill development.
Councilor McGuire?
Thank you. This one, I think this one's one of the most important ones of the plan, because it's what dictates how future development fits with existing development. And when we look at other communities, like say the Shoppers Drug Mart in Newcastle or the Tim Hortons in Perth, it's these regulations that made those businesses put up a higher quality finishing than they otherwise would have been the default. So if we want to have new development, give that downtown feel and be compatible with the downtown feel, we need to have strong rules here. And I give Mr. Grinke credit. There was a council meeting one night where we were here at 5, and then we went to the DBA meeting after, and we were there until 9. And what we heard from the DBA was that there's very strong support for this stuff going forward. And I think it's one of those things that when we set the rules at the beginning, and when people are looking to do new development and the rules are clear and laid out at the beginning of the process, it's a lot easier to have the development move forward the way we want it than trying to go back at site plan or trying to go back after they've come up with their initial vision of the facade and what it's going to look like. When it comes to materials, I think brick and stone have to be the primary. Wood would be a third, but you can see in town there's a house on Brockville Street that put wood up instead of plastic siding, and it's environmentally friendly. It's looking great. The paint they used a stain that goes into it, so it's not going to peel. But those are the 3 materials I think we need to focus on, because those are the materials that were used when the downtown was built and that define the character of the HCD. When it comes to roofing, I don't know that we need to be as prescriptive. We've got pitched roofs, we've got mansard roofs, we've got flat roofs. Color, I don't know that we need to get into color too much, but I think we really need to push for steel, because the steel, it's a higher quality. Once again, better for the environment. We don't need to regulate it, but it can definitely be a guideline or a best practice that we can include in here. And flat roofs, obviously, they wouldn't be included because they're not visible. The facade composition is what you see when you're going on Russell Street, and we know we have infill developments of newer buildings, and the window density and grid matches the older buildings adjacent to it. We want to keep maintaining that because it keeps that consistency. Windows and entrances, we want windows that fit the holes. We want, remember with the Rideau Hotel, with that heritage permit, we got a really great win when we were able to keep the dental patterns on the windows of those big arched windows on the ground floor by working with the developer, working with the community improvement plan. And I think with the HCD, we want to see that going on other buildings, because when people take siding or take windows that don't fit the opening, it cheapens the whole experience downtown. So for these, I'm hoping that where it's more prescriptive, as I've talked about, I'm hoping we can lean that way. But for things as roofing and colors and that, I don't think we need to make it more strict than it needs to be, you know?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor McGuire, because like Councillor McKenna, I rely on the Heritage Committee and your expertise to kind of guide some of this. Just sitting on the economic development side of things, as I often do, one of the pieces of feedback from the DBA is that many of our businesses downtown, the properties are owned by landlords who are not local. And we heard it again at a chamber meeting recently, the Economic Development Committee, that there's many buildings that need work, but the landlords aren't willing to invest. So my concern, and the DBA put this in their report, is that will this district be another barrier to getting that work done, or one more excuse? I'm not saying it's justified, but it is a concern that I have. And then the other thing that we've heard, and this may be a question from the, so I guess sort of finish that point, I wouldn't want to be prescriptive on roofing types because I think there's a huge cost difference between steel and shingles. And so that would be the one piece of that I'm not in support of. The other thing, while we have the consultant online, just with his experience, is I am hearing that there's higher insurance costs for designated properties. And I have no proof of that, but I'm wondering if that's something that has been experienced, because I'm hearing it's quite dramatically different.
Okay. Would the consultant like to?
For sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'll start with, I think there were two questions there, but I'll start on the insurance bit just because I think it's fresh on our minds. But yeah, no, the insurance question is definitely something that we've heard a lot of coming out of the pandemic. I think it's something that we've seen insurance rates kind of go up across the board for newer buildings, older buildings, designated buildings, non-designated buildings. It really is an across the board thing. Provincially, there is recognition that, you know, being designated doesn't mean that you'll end up with a higher insurance premium. And it really does depend on kind of the insurance broker that you talk to or that you're communicating with. It's, you know, generally there's no reason for a designated building to have a higher insurance premium than a non-designated building. It really is based on, you know, condition and, you know, the quality of the systems in the building. So designation really doesn't play a part in that. And then that's kind of recognized by the provincial government and by the Insurance Bureau of Canada. They've also kind of put out kind of information about heritage buildings. We've also seen heritage houses with lower rates reflected in the condition. So it really is a case by case basis, but there's no real there's no real science behind there being a higher no real evidence for it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's something that is very variable. But there's no evidence that really says it. It's more of a bit of a misconception with some brokers that are out there.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor McGuire?
Yeah, I think it's a great question on the insurance, and it comes up a lot. And I think a lot of insurance plans are generally towards a maximum coverage amount. So they acknowledge that if it's a total loss, the building's not going to be rebuilt brick for brick. And the payouts X amount, and that is going to be agreed upon on what they sign up for with their policies. So it really shields a lot of that risk. There's definitely some companies that that don't like to insure heritage buildings, and there's no doubt about that. But I think the way a lot of policies are set up, it's not a deal breaker or it's not a game changer the way some people think it might be. When it comes to the right now, the draft plan has guidelines and policies are the must and guidelines are the should. So for the roofing materials, I'm suggesting a should, not a must. And then that edges us or it pushes people, nudges them in the right direction, but it doesn't rule out having to put a roof in your building.
Yeah. Okay, Mayor Peko?
Sure, no, I'm supportive of Councilor McGuire's comments regarding 4.5 and the new infill development, and the rest of it I support as well. So
yeah, I as well. Everyone else, okay?
So just to confirm for the draft, what I'm hearing from council is that we're recommending as a guideline that mansard or pitched roofs should be made of steel. Is that that's the direction?
Should, not must.
So we'll propose that as a guideline then. Thank you. So I'll just quickly go into to commercial signage. So I'm highlighting this for council's attention here as we had a number of discussions a couple of years ago when we were drafting a new sign bylaw, and that bylaw has that bylaw is relatively hands off in terms of some of the design provisions on the signs. So the Heritage Conservation District Plan takes a sort of puts a heritage lens on the signage. And for example, one thing that's a little bit more restrictive in the proposed plan is that we're proposing to prohibit illuminated signs altogether. So right now, the sign bylaw, at least within that district, so the sign bylaw does not permit box signs. So your cabinet signs that are, I believe it's 20 centimeters deep and typically backlit, but there's a little bit of provision for different forms of illumination. So this is certainly intended to recognize that signs are ultimately they're replaceable, but they are certainly an important character defining element in a district. So I'm looking for just for council's, I'm bringing this for council's attention and any feedback that you may have as it relates to that section.
Councillor Miller?
I maybe should have let Councillor McGuire go first,
You
but
went first.
I was just going to ask if there's a grandfather clause for existing signage.
I'll let Christian
Yeah.
speak more specifically, but my expectation is that anything that the Heritage Conservation District plan in and of itself does not compel anybody to do anything new. If you have something, you're entitled to keep it. It guides if you're putting up a new sign, then you'd need to follow the instructions. So a business that has the business isn't the plan. The council's adoption of the plan will not force somebody to go out and get a building permit or do work on that. Christian, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, just to echo you, it's not a retroactive plan. Everything is kind of from this point moving forward, whatever changes or new developments come in. But yeah, no, it's not forcing people to change what's already there. It's just, to be more conscious moving forward with the plan.
Makes sense. Councillor McGuire?
Thanks. So this is another one the DBA was very supportive of and felt very strongly about. The recommendations or ideas, provisions to make it more strict that I don't know if I've got a bunch of different drafts in my head, but I don't know if they're included or not, but I want to get council's take on them, is variable message signs, LED tape, and LED rope lighting. It's generally considered that those don't fit in the character and the composition, and that doesn't mean that you can't have LED lights or architectural lighting, but they need to have a bulb and they need to be like a bulb shape on them, and they need to not the bright flashing kind of stuff that you see when you're coming in Lombard Street. So looking for
Councillor Miller
for that one.
To jump in there, when we talked about the sign bylaw last time, we got some feedback from a local sign company. Were they consulted on kind of our new draft? No. Or how about this? Could they be if they haven't been?
We can certainly circulate them. We've consulted with them on the community improvement plan, on the draft community improvement plan, but not on. We haven't directly reached out to them as it relates to the Heritage Conservation District plan.
I think, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I just think that would be wise because I thought their feedback last time was really specific and I appreciated that. They're the experts.
Yep. Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify Councillor McGuire's question. So if I have a window and I put a big tape up in that, is that considered a sign through the window showing out, or are we talking about what I would normally think of as something over the door or over the front of the facade? So that was just want to understand.
From the inside.
From the inside.
Yeah.
That's where you usually see them.
Right. Councillor McGuire?
I think we've got the ability, we're controlling how it's worded. So I would prefer if it's both. That's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep. So go ahead, Carl.
Our sign bylaw currently defines a sign as anything that brings attention to itself. So if there's a window covering that advertises something, it's not just something that's put up on a fascia. So it looks at signage quite broadly. So this would meet at least the sign bylaw's definition of a sign.
Councillor McGuire?
Sorry, I missed a note for the window section. It's also been proposed to eliminate window coverings for storefronts. Certain storefronts need to have a visual block between what they're selling and the public, but we can see there's examples in town where they've done that visual block through curtains or something offset from the windows, so it still gives that storefront feel. And then we've seen other examples where there's paper taped up in the window and it doesn't look very appealing. I think in Ottawa there's a lot of examples where Neighborhoods have banned those, and it just gives that feel of the street that there's a store there and that it's an open storefront. So I'm looking to get council support to get rid of the window coverings.
Councilor McKenna?
Yeah, as opposed to one big vape sign that just is pasted on the window and,
Yeah.
yeah, no, they don't have much appeal, that's for sure. If it could be incorporated, I'm in support of that.
Councilor Miller?
I'd want that very carefully worded. Just, I don't want to be getting into how people promote their business and what they can display. We have some beautiful window displays in this town, so I would just want to see the wording on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point, because something like the fitness and wellness center that used to be downtown had a great tasteful frosting, but this is more for 100% no light transmission, basically blacking out the windows to create a wall, you know.
Some businesses are they not required to cover their windows so you can't see in? I'm thinking of the cannabis shops. Yeah.
So they're not required to cover the window. They're required to block the visual from the street. So if you're driving through Van Cleek Hill, there's an example of a really great looking cannabis shop from a storefront perspective where you drive by. It's got displays in the windows, the same as say Smith's Shoes used to have, but then it's got a wall in the back of it that still provides that visual barrier. So I think this is a design push of just making them go a little bit further so they don't create that wall-less look when we're walking downtown. And one cannabis shop downtown, I believe, is already doing this. So,
Yeah, wouldn't prohibit, let's say, someone who's got a vacant unit from putting a stencil or something on the window that's more visually appealing. It would be more a matter of, say, just it's completely non-transparent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's, yeah, wording I think is what's important here to make sure.
And oftentimes they'll be covered up while they're renovating inside. So you could put, something in there about that as well. Okay. You got that one, Carl?
Let's just write it down.
Yes, just to confirm council's direction as it relates to signage, we're looking at we're looking basically at coverings that conceal and block out the window, not necessarily coverings that or at least window signs that advertise a business. Our intention at this point is to sort of remove the coverings that detract from that streetscape business interface.
Yeah, and I think Councilor Miller had mentioned something about talking to the sign guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And something else?
Sure, just because it could be blocked out and have the business's name on it, and would that count as advertising? Like, I'm thinking anytime that a business wants to permanently block out their window, that's the situation I'm thinking of. So if you're renovating or something and it's temporary, that's one thing, or it's between owners. But even if it's got something advertising the business on it, if it's blocking the window, it shouldn't be there. Is that the consensus? If it's 100%, 100%.
That's from McKenna.
I think we wanted to see the detailed wording on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
So I'll move on to the last issue, and that is religious institutions. So we've received feedback from one of the three churches in the district, and that speaks to the unique context and mandate. So the draft HCD highlights sections that are related to religious institutions and notes that a couple of years ago, the Ontario Heritage Act was amended to streamline heritage approvals for churches and essentially move them to obligate council to approve alterations that relate to the religious function. But that streamlining applies to religious institutions that are individually designated. It doesn't apply to Part 5 or district designation, and none of our churches have heritage designations. So that is. So the policy as worded right now acknowledges that OHA provision, but it doesn't extend it. It doesn't extend it to the district. So the churches would be subject to the same provisions that any other contributing buildings are, and obviously, and if a renovation were to happen, it would be eligible for funding through the CIP if it complies with the eligibility criteria. So the draft presents the feedback we've received presents three options that I'm presenting to council. One is leaving the wording as submitted. The second, council can amend the boundaries to remove one or more of the churches, and thirdly, we can extend that OHA streamlining provision to the religious institutions. So that would apply to the property, and if a church were eventually sold to a different use, then the Heritage Act provisions would kick in. So this is it generated a little bit of discussion between ourselves and Stantec. I'll look to Christian if you'd like to provide any additional feedback as it relates to the sort of that statutory interface.
Yeah, so this is a fairly new amendment to the OHA, and it hasn't really been tested a lot. So this is where it would, if we're boiling it down really simply, is that if there are interventions or alterations that are proposed for religious purposes or for continued use of religious purposes, they would generally just be, in the word of the OHA, accepted without real question. So say like the windows needed to be replaced so that the building can keep operating for religious purposes, the windows would just be allowed to replace as per the wording of the OHA. If it were proposed that the congregation had moved out and they wanted to turn it into a gym, then the kind of express approvals would not apply because it's not for continued use of religious purposes. So I think what we're looking at here is whether we, like Carl said, include them and kind of word the HCD plan to apply these to Part 5 buildings, even though it's technically there for individually designated buildings, Part 4 buildings, remove the buildings, or kind of look at a different form of amendment for these specific buildings.
Okay. Councilor McGuire.
Thanks. I think it was great that we had a good representation from Trinity at the last open house, and I've read through the concerns. I think that right now it's best to leave it as it is. I think that as it comes forward, any heritage permitting process, we have a reputation, Carl has a reputation of doing these very quickly. We've had town projects where we've had meetings with a very quick turnaround, the post office, the Rideau Hotel, the porch on Chambers Street. I think the porch on Chambers Street was less than a month turnaround, or very close to a month turnaround. So when we look at big capital projects for institutions, I don't see that the speed of this is going to be an impediment. And I also think that with the CIP funding program, that they'd be missing a big opportunity to not apply. And the application process for that and the procedures of that are a lot more onerous than the heritage application process is. So I think if the CIP process is effective, which it is because this church has applied for it, and if that isn't too onerous, I don't think adding this onto it, it's going to be a lot of it's going to be in parallel, and it's going to be a lot of the same things for two different applications. So I don't see it creating a deal-making situation. And if it does, there's always that opportunity to come to council, and council has the ultimate say on it. So I think there's a lot of mechanisms in here that provide me with the confidence I need to leave it where it's at. And, if a couple of years down the road from now, we need to make an amendment to something, or something blindsides us, then we have that option. But right now, I think this is the best course of action, and I think that's why it's been put in by the consultants.
Councilor Miller.
Thank you, and I like your explanation on that, Councillor McGuire, and I think what it brings up for me is that the process has to be really fine-tuned. It's going to be critical because if we make this onerous and difficult and time-consuming, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So I trust that that's been brought up, and that's once this is passed, or if this is passed, that's going to be a critical piece of this.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Mayor Paco?
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather prefer that Trinity be included, as been recommended, and leave it section 4.33 in place. And again, we've heard it. I think we know we've got the right staff. We have processes in place. if they're planning a major capital project, it's really important to just consult with the town early on and make sure we're understanding and involved. And I don't think it would be overly onerous.
Okay. Anybody else?
It's just an overarching question, not related to the questions here, if I may.
Certainly.
Just, I guess some really important buildings are owned by Parks Canada down at the bottom of Beckwith. Was there a consultation with them specifically? They own the Woods Mill. They've got what they do with those buildings, and it's in the Heritage District. Were they consulted specifically?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, they were consulted. They were originally proposed to be left out of the district as they would, as a designated entity, they wouldn't be subject to those same rules. A lot of other government agencies are, Hydro, for instance, but in this case, they consented to have the boundaries expanded to include them, just as a geographically contiguous area, and to send a message. I don't believe, and Christian, if you can sort of jump in there, I don't believe that these policies would be binding on Parks Canada. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, they wouldn't be binding policies on the Parks Canada buildings, but it would be generally if they follow a good neighbor policy, and generally because they've requested to be included in this, it would be something that they consider. And with the Woods Mills properties, they have their own kind of FIBRO review that they have to do, or FIRO now, they've dropped the B. But yeah, so it's something that they would likely consider, but not binding as it would be for municipal properties.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Carl.
I think including them within the boundary is forward thinking. In the event that they ever were to sell those buildings, then whoever buys, assuming it's a private property owner, whoever buys that the policies would apply to them. So I think designating the boundaries as we want them to, and then having the provisions apply as it relates to legislation, I think is an approach that makes sense.
Yep, good. Yes, Councilman Mayor.
No other comments on this. I just really want to thank Carl and Christian and the MHC and the members of staff that have been on the committee. So there was a ton of comments and edits that went into the last draft report. And as you can see from this report, it's a long document. And many of them have been incorporated and the changes have been reflected. So it's, really appreciate where we're at tonight. So
Good. That was a good discussion. Next steps, Carl.
Yes. So before we can approve a Heritage Conservation District plan, we would be obligated to hold a public meeting. So the open houses we've held earlier, we're gathering feedback. It was very important. It was above and beyond the requirements of the Act, but we're looking to schedule a statutory public meeting. We've had some feedback from council looking for a couple of tweaks on the draft, and also a couple of items relating to delegated authority and exemptions that you'd like some further consultation on. So the question I'll have for council is, are you comfortable with proceeding to a public meeting on December 15th, hearing the feedback we have there, and then MHC will have the opportunity to review and provide a recommendation in December?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's, we will carry forward there. Further to Councillor McGuire, I'd also like to acknowledge specifically a steering committee. So this project has been guided by a steering committee consisting of myself, Community Services Director Stephanie Clark, since there's a lot of public lands that are part of the plan. Pauline Anger, representing the real estate industry. It was very important that we had that perspective there, as well as Jenny Davis and Councillor McGuire, who on behalf of the Municipal Heritage Committee. So we've been meeting routinely with them, and they've provided some very, very helpful feedback to myself and to Stantec. So I certainly want to acknowledge the time that they've taken on this project as well.
Thank you, Carl.
So just confirming council's direction that we're ready to proceed to a public meeting subject to the revisions we discussed this evening.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Carl. Okay. 9.2 Water Financial Plan with Director Dauber.
Good evening. Thank you. To the chair, I'd like to start by just a reminder to council, but also more importantly, information to the public as to what a water financial plan is. So water financial plan is a 10-year outlook, detailed for both operating and capital. And it's a requirement for every municipality that has a water system to renew their license for the water plan according to the Safe Drinking Water Act under OREG 453-07. So it provides detailed information on a 10-year plan. It's updated every 5 years. As I said, on both operating and capital, and usually ends up providing some information similar to a financial statement presentation, but specifically pulling out the components that have to do with water. So Hempson was the company that was working through this with us. They built upon the 2021 plan, which was the last plan, using information from our 2025 budget, both operating and capital, and then asked staff for some detailed information on projected future large capital projects. The gist of the plan is to, in essence, and to kind of simplify it a little bit, the province wants to make sure that we're taking care of our water plant, that we're taking care of our water system, that we have designated resources towards maintaining the operating, day-to-day operating of the water plant in order and ongoing capital projects to make sure that we're able to produce clean, safe drinking water. So this is a regulation that they want to be able to have from every municipality, again, that has a water drinking system. Every municipality has them. Very few municipalities, to be blunt, refer back to it on any sort of long-term budgeting. And they don't refer back to it as far as using that as a measure against things like capital projects. Again, it is a show of the province that we are maintaining our systems. We have taken great pains and strides and provide a lot of information to make sure that the information was accurate. It does help us as a reminder to look at our own operating and long-term capital plans going forward. Now, as far as the timing of this goes, we need to submit it by December the 30th. So, of course, we're here at November the 24th. We need approval by December the 30th. We're bringing it today so that council can have time to answer questions. If council wants a little bit more time to contemplate and come back, then there is certainly time to do that. At that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilor McGuire.
It's interesting to see it. I was surprised to see, I might be mistaken, but it's about $450,000 at the end of the plan. We're still going to be subsidizing the water and wastewater rates based on the recommendations.
There is a section on page 5 that really talks about the funding from taxation, and there's an encouragement to move away from that. Most municipalities have moved away from that already, although Smith Falls is not the only municipality that does subsidize by the taxes. And those few municipalities that are left, I believe there's at least one more, maybe two. That would be about it. And the province is suggesting, hinting, pushing towards full funding. Now, the fact that at this point the yearly process is to increase water by 5.5% and then wastewater by 3.5%. we had discussed that with the consultants, and they felt that that was a measure to show that we're increasing the rates at a rate higher than inflation in order to take that subsidy down and get it down to zero.
Yeah, just before you say anything, and meanwhile, MPAC hasn't done an assessment since 2016, but anyway. Councilor McGuire?
That was my other question, was how much, just to get that out there, what the recommended percentage increases are. I'm wondering, has any municipality in Ontario cut property taxes and increased the water and wastewater, so it's a net zero on an average basis per ratepayer, but it gets that off the tax books?
That's a really interesting question. It's Smith Falls is a little bit unique in that a lot of municipalities have water systems. And I'm talking smaller municipalities. I'm not talking Toronto or Oshawa or Kingston. But a lot of the smaller municipalities that have wastewater systems usually have a rural and an urban portion. Therefore, there is a difference, and it needs to be differentiated, because the people in the rural areas may not, may have their well and their septic system, so therefore they're not wanting to contribute. So there is a more distinguishable line. The difference in the number of tax bills compared to the number of water bills that go out in Smith Falls is very, very small, meaning almost every property in Smith Falls pays a water bill. So let me make this clear, and this is not a push at all, or even a suggestion. It's just a fact that, let's say, let's make up some numbers and say, for property tax, is this amount, and the water bill is this amount, and it adds to $4,000 a year, whether it's $3,000 on property tax and $1,000 on water, whether it's $3,000 on water and $1,000 on property tax, whether it's $2,000. In the end, the residents in Smith Falls are going to be paying the same amount with the two combined. So it is a bit of a unique situation, but it wouldn't be I wouldn't be having that discussion in most other municipalities, smaller municipalities under, say, 30,000 residents that would have a water system. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, I guess it's just that 5.5% over 10 years is going to upset people over 10 years. If we did it 1 year and just got the books cleaned up, then could have inflationary increases going forward. It might be PR better, but I just,
Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. And this is something it's been on my radar as well, and actually had discussion with Paul recently about this whole topic. And it's a matter of trying to understand, is it a complete wash? I mean, for the average residential taxpayer, do they end up having the same reduction in taxes as they do and to offset the increase in water rates, or is it close to it? But how does it fit with industrial and commercial and institutional taxpayers? And so I think I think it's something we should be considering for this year, and with the possibility of saying, yeah, we do bite the bullet this year, and we do consider going cost neutral or in around there anyway. But it's a matter of, what is the impact on the water rates, and is it offset completely by the reduction in taxes, the tax rate? So I think that's where we need some understanding if we want to go down that road or consider that. And I don't know about our water financial plan, if it's more a regulatory requirement, so we got to get it done, so we have it done, even though if we made a decision in a month that we were going to take away the subsidy from tax and put it on the water rates, does that change the equation here, or just changes the sources of revenue going forward? So I don't know if we were better to potentially defer any decision on this until we've had discussion about water rates as it relates to the 2026 budget.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, we have to pass this plan by end of December as a regulatory requirement, but it's also very informative as far as where we're going for the next 10 years. So, I mean, I'm in favor of passing it. We're not setting a water rate tonight, that's for sure. So I'm happy if you want to bring it next council meeting, I'd support it. Councilor McKenna? Yeah,
thank you, Mr. Chair. And one is Hempson. One I was really pleased it was only 24 pages long. It's a very intense, but it's complicated. I understand. Anyway, I just got it this morning, so I haven't so a little more time to digest it. So when we come back, because it sounds like council will ask questions tonight, we'll approve it before December 31st. Is it possible to take some of those scenarios that my colleagues have brought up, like a wash or versus this one, and present them in like a slide? One of the advantages is of our sitting here is that we can help our ratepayers understand why our water rates are this. And all the legislation, like there's a story to be told. So helping everybody understand, including council, if there's another scenario, option A, option B, option C, that achieves the same result and satisfies the legislation, that we could discuss that within, if it's not a lot of work, in the next couple of weeks or 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, if I could, that would be, I think it would be a really good analysis, and I think it would really show the public, what the options are and help to explain it if council wanted to move in that direction. Given the constraints currently within the finance department, I would be worried about not meeting the timelines for the December 8th operating budget. But certainly after that, that would be a very interesting analysis to put together.
Theo Morse?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So if this, it seems like this is an important topic that we want to look at, we could run some scenarios. So what Hempson has done is looked at it over a 10-year period, but we're still not at full cost recovery. So we could run, a 10-year with full cost recovery, a 5-year, we could run a 1-year as well. So we can definitely bring that back. I think given the human resource constraints, we'd probably want to engage Hempson to do that analysis for us. So we can talk to them tomorrow and see how quickly they could turn this around. But I would just remind committee, we need to approve something at the end of December. Whatever we approve, it's not cast in stone. Things change with every municipality. So, there are some big assumptions about long-term capital requirements and there's an assumption there's very little upper tier funding. So, there's a lot of variables in this report. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it being perfect in the end, as long as it's submitted and we check the regulatory box. There's still a huge amount of value in the report.
Yes.
That's definitely.
And as it says in the report, it's a living document, right? So, I don't want to go this year and say, well, we're going to get halfway to full cost recovery and everybody's water bill goes up $400. Your tax bill better go down by that at least. So, and then there's a complication, as I said, about impact. It's not even fair. So anyway, any other questions? Do you want to talk about this again then after we have a chance to get a more fulsome read of the Hempson thing? Councillor McKenna?
What's a reasonable turnaround for staff? Like 2 weeks, or is that?
Yeah, so we'll talk to Hempson. I know we met with them earlier today. They're quite busy as well, but if not the 8th, the 15th for sure.
Okay. And then there'll be a council meeting maybe that night.
We will orchestrate
to push it through. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, let's skip the capital. No, I'm just joking. Capital budget, first draft.
So, through the chair, I'd like to acknowledge all the hard work that staff have put into this. They've provided quite a bit of information. Unfortunately, a lot of the work that they've put into the presentation for what I call budget enhancement sheets will be showing up shortly in a 3-ring binder for you to consume and touch and have in front of you. And basically what a budget enhancement sheet is, it's a reasoning behind the project. It gives council a little bit more information. It's 1 to 1.5 pages for each one of these projects that are listed on here. We'll have that out to hand out to council shortly as homework in order to prepare for our next budget meeting coming up. So in the meantime, what we do have is a good overview of the needs of the town as far as capital goes. A little bit of information behind the scenes. Some of the projects from 2025 have been deferred, moved over to 2026. That's identified. And we just trying to consider the time and how much time I can kind of spend through this. I could just give a one-sentence overview of each one of the projects really quickly. If council has a question, we have senior management here, a representation from each department to be able to answer the question should council ask that. I just reach out to council to say, would that be acceptable? Or would you rather I just speak at a high level and let council take the information back and digest it?
Well, I'll look to committee. The other option, maybe, if I know we've all looked through this, anything jump out at you that you need to know what it is or why it's there, or we could go ahead with following. Councilor McKenna.
Well, for me, always is what's a health and safety, what's legislated, like on my list of priorities.
Right.
We don't. There's probably things here we don't have any options. So I'd like to know those, and I put a star beside them.
So if I could through the chair, yeah, we're not tonight. We're not looking for decisions. We're not making any decisions tonight. We just want to bring the information to council. And on those budget enhancement sheets, part of it is a matrix, and it considers health and safety, ranks at low, medium, and high, legislative requirement, routine maintenance, growth-related service enhancement. And those are the options in order to help council get a grasp of the importance of the project and why it's important. And as you said, it would provide exactly that information. And again, we'll have that shortly. It was halfway done today. We should have it done by the end of the week.
Okay, sorry. Yes, Councilor McGuire.
Well, those sheets have possible grants, grants we've received we've actually got money for, grants we've applied for, and grants we might apply for as part of that analysis.
Exactly. Yes, it does through the chair. It's identified grants already achieved in the fire, in police, and also in the water. List the grants that potentially could happen to offset the costs of that.
Councilor Miller? Oh, sorry, are you done?
Sorry, just the grant table here are things we actually have money for. It's already in the bank.
That yes, that's accurate through the chair. These are the ones that already are confirmed. I have not put the maybes on there.
Councilor Miller?
Do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
I was looking at CFR.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, if I could just clarify. So I think most have been confirmed. The one exception are the Beckwith bridges. So we just applied for it. We assumed funding because the approach we've taken in the past is if we don't get funding, we defer the project until we get funding. It's 90 cents on the dollar, so we would probably want to wait to secure the funding. So that's the only one I think where we've assumed funding of this list of 69 capital requests.
Yes,
So, Mr. Chair, to answer the question at hand, I would like your high level sort of paint the picture, but in terms of even asking intelligent questions until we have all that data, I'm not sure that I could.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start right now, so.
I think there's 69, is it 69 items? 69 items on here, so. Yes,
I
Councilor
agree.
Moore.
Just seeing what time it is and the information we've got. I don't know what more we can talk about. But
No. Sure, go ahead.
I could do it very quickly and just do like a sentence per project if that's what Councilor Miller was asking.
69
Yeah.
minutes.
That's, no, I don't. Committee? As much as we'd love you to do that, I guess we don't mind. But anyway, the total number here is something like 29 million dollars.
Through the chair, yes, that would be correct. Of which about $3.2 million draws from water and wastewater reserves combined. I'm in the middle of a more detailed analysis, but from a high level, what we're looking at as available uncommitted dollars. within 2026, we're looking at water and wastewater being somewhere in the range of about $4 million. And then for the tax-based capital reserve, we're pointing at $4.8 million. And I need to go back and do a little further analysis of the projects, take into account the projects that are canceled in 25, the projects that came under budget, to adjust what that amount of committed funds are for the tax-based reserve. But from a very high level, we're somewhere in around the $2.5 million range, which is not exactly at the $4.8 million conversation here. But please keep in mind that's high level, and I'll provide more detailed information in the future.
Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Is this a projection of our actual needs, or is this a wish list?
It's a projection of our actual needs, and that's a really great question. Another great question could be which of these projects have to be done in 26 and which can be pushed off to further years. I think that might also be a good discussion. But as far as is it necessary or is it a wish list, I would say senior staff are saying that they are necessary, but again, it's what's the timing of it.
Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, so rather than a line by line, I was thinking this feedback is better for you, I'm hoping. So when you come back with the spreadsheet with, which ones can be put off, or which ones are legislated, health and safety, which ones are in the strategic priorities the council has set. Like those filters help me funnel it down into
Okay, so I think we're good with that. I mean, the next one will be the operating, so we'll see. We're going to do that soon, the operating budget thing.
Yes, it's scheduled to come forward on the 8th of December.
Okay.
So we call this draft number 1.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, so
Jennifer.
typically, if I recall correctly, this would be the time where we would get a presentation and each department head would say, this is what my chunk is. Is this binder that we're waiting on replacing that presentation? Is that just a process shift, or?
I'm hoping that it will save time as far as the meetings go. Unfortunately, it will add more effort to council for pre-reading beforehand. But in that, I think council will come to the meeting with a greater understanding of what the projects are, what they entail, and why that they're considered important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Director. Thank you very much. The next item is we have the Chief of Police here, Chief Empey, for pre-budget approval, CAD mapping. And we'll note that Councillor Robinson has left.
Evening, Council. I'll be very brief. If you want to lose weight, just put this on and come in here. It's so hot. I'm glad I wore a t-shirt. Sorry for your time. I just wanted to advise Council through the chair. The last board meeting we had, the Police Services Board approved the budget, both capital and operating, for 2026. One of the highlights for capital is to do with CAD mapping. CAD mapping was deferred by myself to be put into 2026. It was supposed to be in 2025s, but there was other priority items that went on. However, Hexagon is the only company that police services use across the province. It's police cooperative. It's the same firewall. But we haven't had CAD mapping, and I say at least 10 years, when Chief Dowdle was here and canceled CAD mapping. But what it does, it prioritizes public and officer safety and mapping. And we've had so much growth in the last even 5 years in this municipality that a lot of our The system, of course, would be very obsolete. It hasn't been, all we have is what's called niche in our computers and our cruisers. So we're not able to, if you're, for example, say you had a domestic in progress, to run an address and see the flags of the person, if the person has weapons, or what has happened at that address, that we would be able to track with CAD. It's part of a computer-aided dispatch system. So all the information would go from the cruiser to our comm center. And it is a cost of just over $73,000, but then it would have every single address and in our municipality going forward, and have that upgrade that we haven't had in at least 10 years. And it is important for public safety as well, for us to respond quickly to calls, because there's a lot of addresses and streets that we don't know exist, and unless we're told that they exist, we don't know, unless we're driving around and see new builds. I mean, I go drive around and I'm surprised it looks like Fairhaven sometimes in those areas, as you know, out Whitcomb Way and Ferrera Drive. So we keep continuing a lot of growth. So this capital purchase was approved by the board, and I'm just asking for pre-budget approval just so that I could go ahead and at least get it started. We're not going to have to pay for this till 2026, but at least it authorizes us to start, because I've already been told by the company that they're increasing their cost in 2026. So at least I can nail down the pricing for 2025 and get this map going for January.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire.
So it sounds like a good idea to get the price locked in. I'm wondering, we've got ambulance, fire, police that all need the mapping updates, and then there's the extra level of the history of calls for service and that side of it. Is there does this involve any collaboration between the other mapping programs, or how are all of these three programs?
I don't know what fire had just told me what they use, but when I've done my research through what police standards are, because it's part of police cooperative, it's part of optic, it's part of what I have to abide by as far as firewalls and all that. That hexagon seems to be the only one that's for police response or police service. So that's the understanding that I've had when I've done my research across the province for police response.
Yeah, well, I guess as on behalf of the board, we asked Chief Deputy to come today, and certainly to give a pre-budget approval. We supported it at the board and recognize the value of having this in place as soon as possible.
Okay, I believe council supports it as well. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Save Perth College with Mayor Pankow.
Yeah, thank you. We have a proposed resolution in front of us, and I guess we're all familiar with the unfortunate dilemma with Algonquin College in Perth. The reality that Algonquin made a decision, because it was last year, the year before, to close the campus. And my understanding is that there will be no new programs as of fall of 2026. So basically, programs that are running now could run to their conclusion, which would be, I guess, next spring. And you may be aware, you've seen signs around Perth, especially Sabre College, and a lot of news of an initiative by a longtime Perth resident, Toby Shannon, who would like to basically turn that site into a not-for-profit college, primarily initially focused on heritage trades and carpentry, with the intention of eventually expanding to additional trades, as well as the sort of regular college programs that might run for a year or two, also the apprenticeship programs as well to accommodate that. And so he spoke to the Economic Development Committee that the Chamber of Commerce has put together. Councilor Miller and I are sitting on that. We were there at a meeting last week. He addressed it. And obviously there's great value to our citizens to have an opportunity to have an opportunity for an education close to home, not having to either commute to Ottawa or Kingston or Brockville, not having to set up residence in those communities where the cost of education, the cost of residence and communication, so education would be so much higher. The value of ensuring we have a good supply of local tradespeople, skilled tradespeople who can support ongoing construction, economic development of our community. The original objective of continuing to build homes, our need to see more homes built, recognizing a lot of the tradespeople that we all rely on now are maturing and eventually will be retiring, to ensure that we have new people going into the trades as well. So we've drafted the proposed resolution here to try to help encourage Algonquin. The province, I think, is well informed. I think Mr. Shannon had an opportunity to address provincial ministers, and they seem to be quite supportive. But really, the decision lands with the Board of Governors for Algonquin College. And I think we'd love to see this continue on as an educational facility and able to support primarily our young people in the trades. So we have a proposed resolution in front of us. Just looking for council's questions or comments and hopefully some support.
Councilor McKenna?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am supportive of the proposed resolution. I just did have a question. So we have a private entrepreneur would buy it and then in some way lease it out to a not-for-profit.
No, he's formed a not-for-profit to actually own.
So, okay. So he's just the spearhead or the...
Yeah, he would be donating money to the not-for-profit to purchase the campus.
That was my only question. I'm all for it.
Councilor McGuire?
Yeah, very supportive. One of the key concerns that came up during the HCD consultations has been it's very hard to find contractors that can do this work. And it's similar with CIP applications. So the more people we can have in our community trained in these skills, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard Toby on the radio last Saturday. He was on for half an hour talking about it. And I think he's a real visionary. I wonder if he would like to come and speak to us here to get a platform in Smith Falls and get some support. I'd be open to that.
Yeah, possibly at some point.
Yeah, that'd be good. Anyway, I'm fully supportive of the resolution for sure.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. So I assume it's come forward at next week's council meeting for.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Okay. Good. No committee, board, or organizational updates. I do have one with Councilor McKenna.
Just the mayor mentioned earlier that Leonard County and the town of Smith Falls had their budget meeting last Friday. And in theory, it's been approved to go ahead to council for approval. I think we ended up at a 2.9%.
Well, not we, because that's the county.
The county, yeah.
But overall, the impact on Smith Falls is.
Yeah, the overall impact on Smith Falls is $3,024,211, about a $35 per household increase.
That's a lot.
That's the total.
6%.
Yeah, it's about 6%.
Increase on our shares, their share service.
Okay.
So it's up, and remember, it's a weighted formula they use depending if it's long-term care or paramedics. So we do use the services and we do pay our fair share, but it does impact our final tax bill. And I hope when we send that out in the future, the tax bill, that we're able to differentiate the county levy as we do the education tax levy.
As you say, we do get services, important services with that, but not much control of how much.
About $35 a head or a household on the Smith Falls residents, the increase.
Yes, the increase.
Top of
Councilor McGuire?
I think that's a great idea if we had that Leonard County line on the invoices. And I think for also the police service where it's decided by a different board than us, have a separate line for all those, just to show the public that it's governed differently, it's decided differently.
Okay, thank you for that. It's that time of year.
So I'm hearing some opinions. Do we have direction to isolate the county and the police on the tax bills?
Is that doable?
It is. Yes, it is.
Mayor?
I would say yes, and with the clarification for county that it's land ambulance, Leonard Lodge, social services, social housing.
Yes, Peter.
I think council would like to see that, but when staff take that back and there's some impediment or something, just come back and explain It's a nice to have. It's a probably best practice, but if this year for some reason it can't, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
It can certainly be done. Lower tiers show the county levy or the county portion separately. That's fine. Some communities, Tay Valley shows policing separately, so it's certainly doable. So I'm not concerned about that. It's just the relationship between the county. It's not our portion. It's a levy we pay for on a fee-for-service basis. So we'll have to provide a brief explanation of what that means. But it's doable.
It's not a levy. It's a bill.
It's a bill. We're paying a fee for service.
Exactly. Councilor McGuire, anything?
CO Morris, are there any others that would fit that category that we may want to do?
Through the chair, the only one that comes to mind would be the library, since it's a separate board. It's a fairly nominal amount in comparison, but it could be isolated as well.
Our ECA is a levy imposed on us. Health unit.
Public health.
And now we're starting to add up.
So it might be just some way to differentiate, maybe not on the tax bill, but in the note that goes with the tax. I don't know. I'm open.
We will come back after budget approval or in concert with budget approval to make a recommendation.
Okay.
Nice pie chart.
Pardon me?
Nice pie chart.
Yes, a pie chart, yeah.
Yeah, they're good.
You getting hungry?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. We have a couple of correspondence items. A resolution from the municipality of Blue Water regarding federal climate change priorities, and a resolution from the township of Edwardsburg regarding the OCIF funding. Councilor McKenna?
Can I ask that the resolution on climate change be sent to the Climate Action Work Group for consideration or for information?
Yes. We can do that, clerk. Councilor McGuire?
Yes. Be supportive of supporting the OCIF resolution.
Yes, I would. Everybody else would?
Yes.
So we could bring that forward to a council meeting? Perfect. Okay. We do have an in-camera session to discuss proposed acquisition and disposition of land. I'll look for a motion to go into camera. Councilor Robinson, second by Councilor McGuire. All in favor? welcome back. We're back from our in-camera session. The Rising report is council discussed or proposed acquisition, disposition of land. Staff were given direction. No notice of motions. I'll entertain a motion that says the committee adjourns its proceedings at 7:53 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Miller. All in favor?
Well done, Mr. Chair.
Through that one.
Good agenda. Good stuff.